All right, everybody, we're back. Working Dog Radio, broadcasting the bite. I am Eric Stanbro from my dining room, not from the funhouse. It's just a little too hot, and this is a Saturday when we're recording, and I honestly just, funhouse is 25, 30 minutes from me. I didn't feel like going up there. With me, as always, from his studio, AK office, is Ted Summers in Tulsa. What's going on over there, buddy?
I just went and did the soccer dad thing over in Oklahoma City. So I just got back. They won. So she played really well.
Shade with you?
Yes. I have an umbrella because it was stupid hot. It's humid and I'm ready for fall. So this summer has been kind of rough. It's been super humid. We've gotten a shit ton of rain. So I'm ready for that. Just getting raised. We sold another, well, you know, Todd Thompson. We just sold they were here Thursday, Friday. We sold them a dog in this next class. Yeah. So Castle Rock PD, they're going to get a black shepherd that we've got named Mr. Ingo. Super nice dog. So
That's how I was getting out of the dog. So wasn't he promoting out or something?
Yeah, but they brought him down with the handler and another senior guy to kind of help with the selection process. It sounds like they had a bad experience with another vendor or something. So I didn't pry too much on that. But so anyway, yeah. So
that's a good point to point out. A good thing to point out to guys. When you're going to go look at dogs, your department, you got to talk them into they got to be willing to let you travel, like go places, right? There's nobody in Ohio really I would recommend to anybody going to get dogs. And so it's like, there's a couple guys, like guys down around Columbus that got really nice dogs, but they only have a couple. So what if they don't have any, and they're like, anybody close to us? No, dude. Some of that's the handlers being lazy, I think. The trainers being lazy. You need to be willing to travel to other states. If you're up in Ohio, up in the Northeast, you should be willing to drive to North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Tennessee, different places to look at dogs.
No, you don't have to drive to California.
No, you don't even have to drive out to Tulsa. But if Ted happens to have 5 or 6 green dogs and you can't find anything, then they just need to suck it up. Again, these police supervisors that act like it's their money, I just don't get it. I will never understand that mentality. Never understand it. I'm not saying
I say that all the time.
Book.
Yeah, I say that all the time. I'm like, it's not like a bonus. Like if you don't spend it, you don't get to keep it.
So they sure as hell act like it is. The funny you say that, years ago when I got hired for the first I don't know how long in my career, first 3-4 years, there was a guy who was our chief who was as old as Mr. Burns from The Simpsons. And he had been chief like 30 years. He was a cop 50 years. I think he was chief 30 years. And at some point, him and the fire chief every other year got a bonus for returning money. And it was a whole thing they got. And the only reason why we found out about it is because the department has to post it in the newspaper. The city has to post it in the newspaper, which is a weird thing from way back. But yeah, we figured that out. He was returning money every other year and getting a bonus out of it. It was pretty stupid. Him and the fire chief altered back and forth every other year. So it used to be a thing.
Wow.
But not if you're a lieutenant. If you're a lieutenant or a captain or a sergeant in charge of something, you need to let them go. It's not that much money for them to travel and go find the right dog. Like I've had people come to me or go to other vendors and they're like, we have to bring a dog back. We have to. And it's like, what if there isn't one? Don't settle. You know what I mean?
Right.
This episode is brought to you by KINETIC Dog Food, KINETICDogFood.com. Ted and I love it, man. It's such a really, really good high performance dog food, but also their 24K formula. We use it for training. It is amazing. A nice big piece. No chicken in that particular formula. So if you get a new dog in from Europe, you don't know if he's allergic or not, don't worry about it. Check it out. KINETICDogFood.com.
Our friends out in North Carolina at Highland Canine Training run great green and finished dog programs, as well as an online and in-person police supervisor course. Hit them up at HighlandCanineTraining.com. That's letter K number 9, HighlandCanine.com. 30% off the discount code WDR30.
This episode also brought to you by Horizon Structures, horizonstructures.com. They will custom build you a kennel, drop it off, hook it up to your water and electric, and have that thing running with dogs in it the same day. They can custom build one. They got some already pre-built. Check them out on their website, horizonstructures.com. Anything you need from mild to wild, they're there.
One of the longtime supporters of the show has been Ray Allen Canine in Colorado Springs, Colorado. They've been around forever. RayAllen.com, where you can buy literally everything but the handler of the dog and the patrol vehicle. Everything else you can get from them. Hit them up, WDR10RAY for 10% off your order. That's WDR, the numbers 10RAY.
One of our longest sponsors is DOGTRA, DOGTRA Official, DOGTRA.com. We love DOGTRA. Their products are so good. Their e-collars, their ball poppers. Ted uses all kinds of different things at his place, from pet dog e-collars to working dog e-collars. He loves the hands-free 1900S. They've come out with some new models lately and an amazing new bark collar called the Smart Bark Collar. Check them out. Dogtra.com, WDR10 for 10% off a single item over $200. Dogtra.com.
Somebody that's been with us since the beginning is Arnaud out in Vegas at ALM Canine Equipment. As if you follow me on social media, you see me wearing my ALM suits all the time. It's all I wear. I've got several of them. Eric's got several of them. We love Arnaud. We love ALM, custom made in Vegas. WDR or WD Radio for 10% off. That's WD Radio for 10% off. ALM Canine Equipment. That's letter K, number 9. ALMCanineEquipment.com.
Yeah, a lot of that's time, and we've had multiple guests on to talk about that. Handler classes have gotten shorter and dogs have gotten younger and blah, blah, blah. And it's in an effort to stretch dollars and budgets just as thin as possible. And so, yeah, not, so speaking of, we finally filled up our, I think I have one spot left for our first round of heat alarms.
Oh, yeah, shit.
So I didn't realize how fucking expensive it was to install those things. Most guys, I guess just if you have a city garage, they just do it. I'm sure Canton had that, right?
Yeah, we had a guy.
Yeah,
guys do that.
We got quoted anywhere from $2,200 to $3,500 to put one of those things in. So I'm like, so we contacted the guy. He actually just retired. He's the guy that worked for TPD that Eric Johnson, the president at USPCA and head canine guy at TPD right now, gave us the contact info. But he was the guy that ran the TPD garage, the city garage forever. And he's got his own thing now. And he's going to give us a deal. And we're going to write him a fat tax receipt for the excess. And so, but we're going to help the departments also pay to put the things in the vehicles too. So, yeah, I didn't realize it was so expensive, but
it is expensive as a dead dog. You know what I mean?
Well, there's that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is that, but, so last episode, it was just you and I kind of talking about some training stuff. And I think we want to expand on it because I spent most of the time talking about our Bulgarian thing. So I think what we're probably going to do this time is kind of get down and do some nitty gritty. I'm going to do some puppy stuff. What are you going to do?
I'm going to talk about prong collars.
Yeah, let's start with that.
You want to start with that?
Yeah, let's start with that.
Excuse me. All right. So I've talked about this. I talk about it in all my seminars and the conferences. It's in my book. And when I was a canine handler in the very beginning, my first class as a handler in 2005, we had one prong collar in a drawer. And
the prong collar.
The prong collar, yes. Go get the prong collar. Oh, no, my dog sucks. I get the fucking prong collar. And we would have to share it. They had one prong collar. It was crazy. But the thought process, and I still see this a lot with guys in law enforcement, is that it's the ultimate correction, right? Is that prong collar is supposed to be used to show that dog. You are going to show that dog, whether it's the dog's foraging when they're heel, which is a lot of times where guys get the prong collar out, or the out. They'll go hook that leash up and get a baseball bat grip on that leash and wham as hard as they can and rip that dog off. When that, and I did that, right? I was a handler. I did it. I was a new trainer. I did it. I was kind of semi-experienced trainer and still doing it. And then I really just started researching and watching and learning and talking to people and seeing what's happening and learning that that's not what the prong collar is actually for. And the reason why I want to talk about this, because a lot of my seminars, I'm leaving tomorrow for one. So many guys come into the seminar and they have a choke chain or a fur saver as their directional collar, their correction collar. And not surprisingly, most of those guys have shitty obedience. Their heel's terrible. It says like choke chain is a correction collar, but it really isn't. It doesn't really teach pressure to the dog. It just kind of takes their wind from them. And there's a lot of guys that have had problems with their dogs, and it's because the dog goes into fight or flight when you're got a choke chain on them. Choke is in the fucking name, right? And so I try to show guys at my seminars, I'm like, let me show you something with the prong collar. I'm like, hey guys, you don't know the prong collar, you're not allowed to use it. Why? Their trainer never, used it, and it just has gone that way. And usually if I can get the dog, if it's a social dog, I'll use a social dog and I'll do it. Although I've been bit in the stomach twice by social dogs.
You know how many times I've been beat by social police dogs? Yeah, hold them.
yeah. By
All right, this episode is brought to you in part by KINETIC Dog Food, KINETICDogFood.com. We've been using KINETIC for quite a while at the kennel here at Torchlight. We feed the 26 and the 28K formula in feeding for the dogs all over there, but I also use the 24K for all of my imprinting for obedience and imprinting for tracking. If you follow me, you've seen me do the tracking stuff where I do the Dick Stall method, who we've also had on the show. But it's great because it's large and it doesn't get greasy and gross in the pouch. I've seen a lot of dudes with drop pouches that look like they're carrying dirty socks around, and it's disgusting. This doesn't do that. It's not greasy. Also, it's not a chicken-based formula. So if you get dogs in from Europe, you're not sure if the stomach is going to handle it. And it's a fairly low calorie version too. So you can do 1,000,000 reps and not have to worry about dog getting fat. KINETICDogFood.com. Also, we've had the guys on the show before and they talk about it, but they do a lot to make sure that the protein bases are nice and pure, and that the stuff that they're adding to it actually adds additive to it, and they're not filling it with pocket lint and sawdust like a lot of other foods. So hit them up, KINETICDogFood.com.
And it's usually when I'm showing them how to do 180s and give the dog pressure on the leash when they're facing the handler, and they turn, and I'm pulling them back off the handler a little bit, they'll turn and tag me in the stomach, and I can see it coming. And I don't know why it's always the stomach. So, but anyways, so I get the prong collar out, and I really want to show them that it's really just, I call the prong collar the easy button. Any human of any age, size, or gender can walk any dog in a nice loose leash heel with a prong collar, as long as the dog understands pressure on, pressure off. And you, with 2 fingers, like you don't have to have a white knuckle grip ever on that leash with the prong collar, ever. And you're just teaching them, even when they're in drive, you're teaching them how to turn the pressure off of that prong collar. So the way I do it, and listen, we do this on the pet side of my place on puppies. All dogs get prong collars. I'm doing private lessons right now with a lady. She's 90 years old, I think. And she's in a retirement home, like a big facility. The fact that she has a dog is insane. It's crazy. The fact that there's a lot of people in this old folks home with dogs is crazy. I just found out today, one of the guys, he can't even take his dog out. The maintenance guys have to do it on a schedule. They have a rotating schedule. Why does this guy have a dog? Anyways, I'm doing the lessons. She's got a little puppy who's like 4 months old, and cute little dog, little terrier mix. And she wanted to try to walk the dog on a harness and was wondering why the dog pulls. You're literally teaching a dog to pull if you wear a harness.
That's what they're for. They put sled dogs in harnesses for a reason.
Yeah, even the no pull harnesses pull. They teach pulling. So yesterday, I had a lesson with her yesterday and today, as a matter of fact. And I just put a little prong collar on the dog. Dude, such a huge difference. That lady's walking that dog. It's very slow. She's walking because she has to walk to the elevator, take the elevator down, break the dog back in the elevator, back up to the 4th floor, and is a puppy. So I told her, you got to do this every hour. And it's the prong collar is making it easy for her. So anyways, we put the prong collar on the police dogs, and I just let them get away from me just a little bit, and I'm just applying some negative reinforcements. Apply some pressure on the prong collar. When they turn towards me, I mark it. But here's the big mistake that a lot of people I see, trainers, owners, handlers using, is they use a 6-foot leash, and you're trying to teach the dog right next to them with that pressure, right? And I always say that there's no learning happens right next to you when it comes to teaching pressure. You need to even if it's a 6-foot leash, that dog needs to be at the end of the 6-foot leash. Let his body weight apply the pressure. And it's real soft. You're not ripping him. Because when I'm part of my seminars in the middle of day 2, we work on cleaning up guys' heels with the leash and the e-collar combo, and then the e-collar by itself, and then we're off leash. And I see guys when they're correcting, they just hammering backwards corrections on these dogs right down their spine, like with because the dog's forging, right? Wham, wham, and that's because that's what in police work, that's what we're taught. Correct that dog, like really correct him. When in reality, that's how a lot of you dudes are getting bit. You know, sometimes you import a title KMPV dog, you got maybe one of those, and you don't even know it. You one hard correction, dude. One more of them things, I'm gonna fuck you up, right? So when you're teaching the prong collar, use a little bit longer leash, or maybe give them 10 feet, 12 feet, and apply a little bit of that pressure. Let them come back to you. Remember, guys,
real quick, are you dead linking it or live link?
I'm live linking it. I have done, and what he means by that is both rings, so that it's not quite as much pressure. It's a little bit more even. I have done that on dogs that have kind of had a bad start with the prong collar, and we're trying to clean that up a little bit. I've done that. Use a little bit longer line, and you'll find out that dog, because remember, guys, when they turn towards you and they take the pressure off, that is a reward for the dog, right? You can mark it there. I believe as soon as the pressure goes off, it's a reward and a mark at the same time. You can mark it there with a click. Yes, okay, whatever. If you forget, because a lot of guys forget because we're giving them a lot to do, the removal of the pressure is a mark on its own. And then when they come back to you, give them a piece of food. Don't use a toy, because you're going to get 5 reps in 25 minutes. Use food. Food. If they won't take food, scratch them on the head, right? Stop using toys to teach obedience in police dogs. Maybe you finish up with a good toy, but your every rep, the reward should not be a toy, because most of you guys can't get the ball from your dog, let alone get a bunch of reps in. So with the prong collar, then what I do on the heel, once they're kind of understanding that, I start using small little, almost nagging little corrections to create a frame next to my leg, create a box, an invisible box of love. I always say inside this box, there's, rainbows and unicorn semen raining down on the dog. And as long as he's in there, everything is great. I don't even give him an inch outside. He gets an inch outside. He gets a little correction. The key too during all this is don't talk to the dog. Don't talk to the dog. Yes, maybe good. Or if you're going to use the here or come or whatever it is, that's it. Don't have these whole long sentences with the dog. Don't tell him heel all the time while you're correcting him back into place. Just correct that behavior of forging. And you don't need to hammer them. It's just small little pop, 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 pop. And what I see when I'm teaching guys is they tend to pull on the prong collar.
Yeah, and they still are engaging opposition reflex and not their,
all the time. And they don't really think, they think they're correcting. They don't really know it.
Yeah.
And guys, when we're teaching this stuff, I'm telling you, a lot of you are doing things you don't even know you're doing, right? So the key is when you're thinking about with the prong collar is don't look at it as this is the collar that I'm going to use is going to correct this dog. No, you're going to use that to shape behavior that you want. Use the prong collar in the correct way. Use it. Think about being real soft and smooth and finesse with it. With my seminars, I make the guys use the leash and the remote in the same hand. So so that they can reward with food in the other hand, but also it forces them to be smooth, because you can't grip the leash with a death grip with a remote in your hand, right? And I'll be honest, it is like watching a monkey trying to fuck a football, watching you guys try to do that. But trying to make you better. We're supposed to be professionals. We need you to be smooth. And if mentally you're smooth, physically you'll be smooth, right? So if you're on the choke chain now or on a fur saver and your dog's heel is not that awesome, right? Maybe forges, a lot of that forging is caused by you bringing a toy from the right to the left and rewarding him in front of you, or food coming around and rewarding him in front. Switch that up, get a prong collar on, and just teach the dog pressure on, pressure off. And I'm telling you, it will go real easy. And don't do it with a 4-foot leash. You know, if you're going to have a 6-foot leash, let him get to 6 foot. Put one finger in the loop of the end of the leash, one finger, and use just that one finger to apply the pressure. And you will see what little pressure you actually need to use. We do it at the facility, you know, and you guys do too, with 120 pound, 130 pound Corsos, giant St. Bernards that are 200 pounds, a light leash, and a prong collar. And those dogs are literally perfect in their heel. And they're stronger than your police dog. Trust me.
We have a 100-pound doodle right now at the kennel.
What?
Yeah, he's a big dude that no doubt could like win a weight pull competition. That dog is just, and my trainers had to put foot pinch collar because he is just all over the place.
Probably one of my favorite companies to deal with in this industry is Ray Allen Canine. What I really love about Ray Allen Canine is I need one website. I don't got to bounce around to a bunch of different places. I go to rayallen.com and everything I need. Because remember, guys, I have a pet dog training business, same with Ted, and we do police dogs. I'm a pet dog owner. Anything I need dog related. It's not just working dogs stuff. It's dog stuff. Anything I need, Ray Allen has. Rayallen.com has everything you need, from leashes, harnesses, bowls, anything you could possibly do. And here's the cool thing. They're always innovating some really cool stuff. If you follow them on their social media, you'll see Matt on there demoing a bunch of cool stuff they have. They're out in Colorado, got an amazing facility out there. One stop shop, nowhere else to go and look. Rayallen.com. Use the discount code WDR10 RAY for 10% off. WDR10 RAY for 10% off at rayallen.com. One of my favorite things to do, man, is we get a dog dropped off and he's a heavy puller, like a real bad puller. We'll take a video of it, and then within the first hour and a half, we send the owner a video of that dog walking next to us, and maybe not a perfect heel, but loose leash, real easy loose leash. It takes minutes, guys. It takes minutes to fix it. It doesn't take you hour-long sessions. Literally 2 minutes of doing 180s, right? Back and forth around to get that dog's mind right on pressure. You will have a nice, easy, soft, loose leash heel. And it just makes it so more enjoyable. And because some of you, if you think about it, when you're going up to a building to do something or whatever, you probably need a little bit of obedience, ingress and egress, right? From maybe a building search or a vehicle or whatever. Put him on a choke chain and he knows what's up, dude. Will just strangle himself. He'll pull right through that. He just will pull through it. Use a prong collar. You'll actually have a dog that comes up to the building or whatever it is, not breathing heavy, actually in a good position. You switch over to your flat collar and then give your warnings or whatever it is you're going to do. It doesn't affect them, guys. It doesn't. Walking your dog up to a heel up to an exercise or an actual call does not ruin them. So anyways, that's it. I really am trying to advocate for guys using more and more of the prong collar. I offer it at every seminar to show them, and I've never had a guy go, "Whoa, that sucked." No, every single one of them was like, "This is the best heel I've had ever." And it didn't take anything, didn't take any effort. It just took a little bit of pressure on, pressure off. And that combination of prong collar and e-collar together while you're teaching like that good heel position and everything, and maybe even recall, that combination is fuel, buddy. It is fuel, so that when you switch to just the e-collar, the dog it makes complete sense to that dog.
Yeah. And, you know, it's one of those things that it's one of the, I think, e-collars and prong collars in general are supremely misunderstood by the general public, or definitely within our industry and definitely on the pet side. But we don't use them a whole lot on the police side. Well, I take that back. We start out, a lot of my handlers, by the time the dogs get to school, don't use them because the dogs don't really need them. But for the most part, I'll use them if I really, it's usually Malinois. If I really, really need to kind of like intervene in some, which is just going to segue nicely into what I'm going to talk about. If I really need to intervene into some poor upbringing on a dog that has good genetics, I don't mean like aggression. I just kind of mean the dogs are not very like willing to engage people in that respect. They're willing to bite people, but they're not willing to engage. They're not really like, they're not easy to train, I guess is what I'm saying. So I've had to use pinch collars on those dogs to kind of like introduce some negative reinforcement or positive punishment to kind of squash some behaviors or kind of exacerbate some other ones. But
yeah, and real quick on that too, before we move on, I thought of something. So some of you guys, you know that if you pop that leash on that prong collar on your dog, it sets them off, right? Or sometimes with higher stim on the e-collar can set them off. Truly, like dogs that have real aggression in them, a prong collar, a hard prong collar correction, or a heavy e-collar correction will set them off. It really does. That's kind of one of my ways I gauge whether the dog actually has some real forward aggression in them. But what I find is if you reintroduce the prong collar to that dog on a longer line, the pressure is different on a long line than it is on a short line, right? Let him get out away from you. Apply the pressure on like a 12, 15, 20-foot leash. If he's going to turn and flash on something, it ain't your leg. You ain't there. But he's not going to. You're just going to apply a little bit of pressure. I throw food. I let them go get the food. I throw it up against the wall. They go they go get to the food. I just apply a little bit of pressure. And as they turn, I mark it and they come back and get paid. You will see that aggressive reaction to the prong collar stop. It stops. Also, if they turn and bite the leash, I'm correcting that, right? Not letting that happen. So I'm ready with the e-collar to correct that, even if he's never felt an e-collar before. Doesn't matter. If you do my system where you teach tone avoidance, when you start teaching tone avoidance, they will stop biting the leash. You'll get them to tone off the leash and then they will stop biting it. But again, no learning happens. No learning happens on a 4-foot leash. Nothing. Right? Take your little waist leash and use that only for operational stuff. If you're training, use a longer line. So anyways, I do want to ask you the questions that I asked you off air, which sparked our conversation about the puppy stuff. So if you listen to the last episode, Ted has a whole new project going on in Bulgaria, right? Almost said Bolivia. That would have been cocaine, but
Bulgaria, no, not Bolivia.
Yeah, Bulgaria, and it's really puppies, starting dogs at puppies, raising puppies, and trying to get them specifically for law enforcement. So I'm not a puppy guy. I don't, we train a lot of puppies at the facility, but I don't raise puppies for police work. So what people will ask me, and this is where I'm kind of segueing in this to you, is they're like, so when do you start them on, hunting for food or playing hunting games? When do you start playing maybe like with a little tug, or something like that? And when's it okay for me to start, maybe using a wedge and introducing bite work to my puppy? My answer always is, I have no idea, because I've never done it, but I know you have. So yeah, that's kind of what led us into this topic of discussion.
All right. Our next sponsor is really good for the business side of this. If you're in the business of breeding and or raising police dogs, or even just regular dogs, pets, or gun dogs, or whatever, one of the biggest hassles that we have to deal with is housing. Making sure it's safe, making sure it's high quality, all these things, make sure it's sterile, it's easy to clean, we can feed. If not, it just creates an infinitely higher workload. On top of that, it's expensive. One of our sponsors from Horizon Structures, they do a great job at making a plug and play drop ready to go as soon as it hits the deck in your location. You have a gravel pad, hook it up to electricity and water. You can put dogs in it that afternoon, and all the guesswork is taken out of it. It's ready to go as soon as it gets there, and you can go from mild to wild. I've seen some that have stainless steel on the inside. It looks like an operating room. It comes with its own air conditioner, all the way down to just like a basic one you need to put in the backyard to satisfy your policy requirements. If you're a canine handler out in the back for a 10x10, he's got an indoor outdoor. He's got a little outdoor thing that's elevated, so he doesn't have to stand in any of his waste, and it's easy to clean. So everything from all the way from a single dog all the way up to, I think they do like, what do they do, Eric? Like they do like 16 and 18 like large sizes. So hit them up, horizonstructures.com. HIGHLAND.com, and they will get you set up quickly.
Yeah. So if you listen to the last episode, I basically talk about how we're purposely raising dogs for basically English speaking markets. Not that we won't sell to whoever, but you know, the Canadians, the Australians, and the Americans all have very similar desires and similar. And a lot of that is because we share military stuff, we share law enforcement stuff, we share language. And so, you know, in the way that we use dogs varies, but it's actually pretty similar compared to like the rest of the world. You know, like in certain South American countries, there are places where you're constitutionally prohibited from being bitten by a dog.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and those places need some of those places you should. So, you know, and like what kind of brought this all on is this whole project that we're working on. So I basically, from 20 odd years of training police dogs, kind of sat back and said, okay, what problems have I seen, like, that run the gamut from health related to environmental issues to whatever, right? And then kind of like drill down on, I'm not even going to talk about the health side, even though the health side does cause behavioral issues, but then drilling down on of the things that we wash dogs for that are related to genetics in terms of workability or in terms of upbringing, like what are those and when do they happen? So then you have to fast forward down the line a little bit further. So when we start talking about this, and if you're listening to this and you're from the United States or Canada, well, not necessarily Canada, because they have a very successful program up there where they raise police dogs. And I mean, like, what is it? Like when we had Jason Bourne on, he was talking about that. And then I went up there after that. I've been there a couple of times, but we met, like, to be an RCMP handler, like you, and not just RCMP, but you raise a puppy, and then that dog that you raise then goes to another handler, and then somebody else is raising your dog. So, I mean, it's like a 3-year process to get into the canine unit. And I mean, and I got to be honest with you, Canadians, like, their dogs are, most of the ones that I've seen are fucking squared away and hot shit. So are the handlers. So very, very high working level, like, across the country, which is cool. And I think it's directly attributed to how they run that program. Unfortunately, in the United States, we have the exact opposite, where everything's got to get done now, fast, yesterday, and get it done. So when we start talking about green dog age, and I kind of said this at the beginning of the episode, like, we were making it, not a joke, but as a comment about admins wanting dogs younger and younger and younger to try and stretch the working life longer and longer and longer. So I remember 10 years ago, we'd have no problem selling a 3.5-year-old dog at all.
Right.
Green, 3.5 years old, green. And I mean, I'm putting in quotations if you're not watching this, but green, meaning the dog has just been never certified, probably had some kind of title, but had never done any odor work, had never done any, like, law enforcement tracking. And had no problem selling those dogs. Now, law enforcement are like Leonardo DiCaprio. Like, if she's over 25, they don't want it. So if the dogs are over, once we start getting to 2 years old, we start seeing guys like, a lot of the bid requests I get, like, I've seen bid requests that are 20 and 21 months are the cutoff. Like, they don't give a shit how nice the dog is. If he's older than 21 months old, I don't want to look at him. So at that point, you know, so where is this happy medium, and like, where does green stop, and where does, like, pre-trained begin? And then, you know, where, like, and I'm not really going to get into the definitions, because green to me is definitely not the same thing to green to everybody else. So what we're seeking to do is kind of offset some of those decisions that happen early on in a puppy's development process and raising. A lot of those dogs in Europe aren't necessarily purpose raised for law enforcement work. They may start out life as just some of the nicest dogs I've ever gotten were just dogs that were growing up on a farm, and the vendor went over and was like, yo, that dog's got stripes, let's buy him. And they turned out to be gangsters. Right now, because of that, there is a little bit of an issue with, like, having to speed that dog up fairly quickly. And that has its own host of problems. So we had a couple of things in this project. One is determining, like, at what point do we feel comfortable saying this is a green dog, and we're really confident that the dog will be able to complete a handler or a trainer school from green, and then go on to be certified and be successfully deployed in the field. And then the other issue was, and this is the whole nature or nurture thing, were the issues genetically created, or were they created by, well-intended but uninformed owners? Yeah, I don't know any other way to say that. And when I say this, it sounds like I'm fucking bagging on the Europeans, and I'm not. They've done this for 200 something years, and they obviously, especially Northern Europe, has the best reputation for raising dogs with the highest potential and the greatest numbers to do this type of work, regardless of where they're at. So that, by any means. That said, I will say that they do not have the lock on it. And there's not a special thing that makes them better than us. I will say that the Canadians and the Americans are hands down some of the best law enforcement trainers in the world, without a doubt. And I think that's more of a product of how we use dogs than anything else here in the US. Like, I've met guys from Switzerland and Italy that are dual purpose handlers. And like, one dude from Switzerland had handled like 6 dogs, or 5 or 6 dual purpose dogs. And he's like, I've never been a person ever.
Wow.
I've never even been in a position where I could bite anybody. I'm like, that checks out. I mean, I've been to Switzerland several times. I mean, that makes sense to me, but it's a very, and then not necessarily they don't have crime, but it's just like how everything presents itself. The United States, and to some extent Canada, we're violent countries, so it is what it is. But so in that respect, like, at what age do we start saying it's the green dog? Where I get comfy is about a year old. I can start to say, look, this dog, I'm fairly confident this dog can kind of work through a handler school or a trainer's course, or not, and just be prepped for like Green Plus, which is what you and I both do sometimes, then passed off to a department to finish. And the dog should have a pretty high success, should have a pretty high ability to be successful in the right hands, the right trainer, the right handler, blah, 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 blah. So at that point, and this is outside of the health testing, everything else, I do have a problem. It makes me kind of squeamish with dual purpose dogs when I get them. In fact, the dog that I was talking about at the beginning of the episode, I actually imported him at 12 months old, I think. And when he showed up, one ear was still flopped over, and he like walks around like his feet are too small for his shoes still. And he's kind of a frumpy, like, little doofus puppy. Gets to about 16 months old, and then all of a sudden, he wants to destroy everybody, and all of a sudden he's getting more confident and everything else. So I'm not in a rush to push dogs. The other thing too, when we start, talking about guaranteeing hips and joints and spines and all that shit, I can't get real comfortable on that until they're 16, 18 months old, if not a little older. So I like to try and have the dogs finished and certified anywhere from 16, 17-ish months on north of that. So with those timelines in mind, and then with those timelines in mind, and then also with the reasons that we wash dogs. So we get green dogs in, like, there's the number one thing that we wash dogs for, regardless of single or dual purpose or search and rescue, is environmentals. Eric, I'm sure you'll echo this, but you go to seminars and I go to seminars, and I still routinely see deployed dual purpose dogs that are working on the street that still have environmental issues.
Floors,
stairs, floors, noise, something fucking weird. And sometimes the handler's like, we've tried to work through it, and it just, Eric, you tell that story all the time about that dog that was in your training group. I think he's probably retired now, the big ass German Shepherd that, he'd fight Godzilla in a basement, but if he had to jump up on a table, he's like, nope, not gonna do it.
I see it too. Yeah, a lot of the guys will be like, here's the crazy thing, man. This dog has street bites, like a lot of street bites. And I'm like, he won't go through the kitchen at this school at all. He won't work. And they're like, well, he has a bite on slick floors, but the dog's pancaked out on it. It's very hard to see,
This episode is brought to you by our good friends, the Perkinsons, down at Highland Canine Training. Highland, HIGHLAND Canine Training. They are a really cool place, guys. They have a school for dog trainers, pet dogs and working dogs. That is an amazing spot, man. You can go there, and it's no joke. Like, you're not going to be there for 3 weeks and come back with some stupid certificate. This is like a 6-month school for dog trainers. You learn every aspect of it, including the business side of dog training, which can be tough, especially for us former cops or current cops or military guys that don't really know all that stuff. They've been doing it forever. They offer online courses. They sell police dogs. They have canine handler schools. They offer in-person supervisor courses. Check them out, guys. HighlandCanine.com is the website to go check it out. Everything's on that front page there. It's a very nice website. Check them out, HighlandCanine.com. For the supervisor schools, I think there's a 30% off with the discount code WDR30, HighlandCanine.com.
So one of the things that I think all trainers, because when people come down to test dogs with us, I kind of let them do whatever they want. I'm like, well, within reason anyway, age appropriate testing, and training appropriate testing. So I'm always interested to see like how people test environmentals. And I think everybody understands loud noises, slick floors, dark rooms, blah, 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 right? I think everybody also understands that we want to test that out of drive. Like I don't want to have to induce the dog to run up open back stairs with a ball. Like he should just fucking do it because I'm going up with him. The question kind of on that underlying problem is the dog have a genetic aversion to those scary things, or is it a lack of exposure? And then how do you differentiate that? Well, when you're selected, you go to a huge kennel, right? Like just pick one of the huge ones. And maybe other people in the country are better at this than I am, but I can't look at a dog in 5 minutes and say, is this environmental or is this genetic? Or a lack of exposure, is it genetic? I do want to see how fast they rebound. Like if I show you something once and you're young, you're 14 months old, and then I show you something similar, or I show you again fairly quickly, or they rebound from being spooked out quickly and then have no problem with it ever again, I'm like, okay, it's an exposure problem. But then, and I've said this before, and I'll say it multiple times again, especially with dual purpose dogs, but if I have a dog that has good recovery on an environmental issue, but then continually has like funky shit that he's weird about, he will 100% have a decoy pressure problem, and vice versa. If I have a dog that is experienced in biting and, age appropriate again, if he has a problem with decoy pressure, I can pretty much guarantee you that he's also going to have some kind of hole environmental, and it's just a matter of finding it. And then once I find it, is it lack of exposure or is it genetic? So on that front, from the onset, puppies are born in Europe or at our facility. Typically on day 3, they start environmental exposure, which is already starting loud noises, all kinds of crazy shit. We have a whole protocol that we're using for noises and sounds and all this other stuff that's either played through a loudspeaker or is kind of in the environment, whether it's like super loud fans, just stuff, right? That normally tweaks dogs out, vacuums, all kinds of shit. And then on top of that, at the early age, they're also imprinted on, once we move them off of the mother onto their like goat milk and puppy food, they're imprinted on clickers. And we start that at an early age. From the time that they're stupid dog eyes, even before they open. And I did this with I call it the tequila litter, because every dog on that litter I named after tequila or after some kind of thing. Like I had one called Mezcal, I had one called Jose, we had one called Cuervo. So but I did that with this litter and it worked great. If everybody knows Rigney, Rigney had several videos up, he'll probably hear this and be like, bro, it was on this date, and he'll send it to me. Rigney had some videos out of him doing this, which is kind of where I got the idea. There was a guy that was raising a dog at another program in Europe that they do this with. So at any rate, I want the dogs to associate it from an early age. Sound means food, whatever, which pays dividends down the line. I actually did this with Hype also when she was a puppy. So this is a super important step here too, at day 49, we run. So there's a ton of research that says that about day 49, the dogs, they're not necessarily obviously not done growing without a doubt, but they're like kind of their personality and their like genetic drives are kind of like where they're going to be. Right. So if you listen to Bradshaw, and he talks about it in Controlled Aggression, that like drive is a continuum, whether it's defense and or prey, right? It's a continuum. So the dog kind of has a natural amount of drive that they would be able to express both in defense and in prey. which is both, well, defense is important for the dual purpose dogs, not necessarily important for singles, but those responses are kind of hardwired by day 49. So we do that puppy selection test, which is a fairly straightforward deal. And and if you listen to go back a couple, one is like 4 episodes ago, we had Neil on twice. He talks about that test, and we run the same version of it as well. To kind of do the sorting hat on the dogs. Like, this dog is displaying early signs of being good for this or that or whatever, whether it's search and rescue, single purpose, dual purpose, whatever it is. And we kind of move down that road. From that point forward, we have specific performance targets about every 3 to 5 weeks on what the dog should be doing and be able to do. And I have effectively a lesson plan written out every day of the week, Monday through Sunday, what these dogs need to be doing. And, to kind of piggyback on, to bring this full circle to the question you just asked me, it was, when do you start biting? When do you start hunting? There are 0 single or dual purpose dogs in the world that were ever washed because of their lack of ability to identify a target odor. There's none. We wash them because they won't look for it. So after we have environmental stability stuff that we check off, right, then we start looking for hunt, because hunt is the single metric, whatever you want to call it, a drive or whatever it is, however you want to phrase it. It's the single metric that we use in military and police work, whether it's single purpose or dual purpose or search and rescue. The dogs have to have the ability to hunt. They have to hunt for bomb and narcotic odor. They have to hunt for human odor when they're tracking and doing building searches or area searches or whatever else, right? The old adage, you can't find them, you can't buy them if you can't find them. Same thing with search and rescue. But their ability to hunt and find odor is the single most important facet of their career and of their selection process. So all dogs kind of naturally have that, obviously some more than others. So we kind of foster that up front at feeding time. We have a protocol we use for feeding. And there was a study done in one of the Nordic countries where they fed a bunch of Malinois puppies. I think it was Norway. They fed a bunch of Malinois puppies in the same room for, months. And it was basically like a mock apartment. So it had a couch and like a sofa and like all this shit in there. And they put the food bowl in the same place every time. So they turned the dog loose. He'd run in there to eat and no big deal. They moved like a plant or something, like a fake plant. All they did was move this plant, and the dog walked in and acted like he had never seen the room before. I mean, he was still able to find food, but it was interesting to see how they process information, and they they're able to discern that something is different here. And then all of a sudden, what did they default back to? So we have
most of us can't tell when your old lady got her hair cut.
Exactly. But a Malinois puppy realizes that the ficus moved, and he's like, what the fuck happened here? Mm-hmm. So we have a protocol set up in terms of the size of the yard, wind direction stuff, and several things where the puppies are given more and more and more and more and more challenging exercises to eat, is effectively what it is. And we have 2 separate things. We are building one of the little puppy obstacle courses to deal with environmental stuff, and they eat when they get through that. And then there's another protocol that I have written out, which is kind of difficult to explain in this format because I need some visuals to show it. But where the dog is turned loose in a known area where he knows that the area is productive for food because he's been fed there before. He's always fed there. He knows that there is food in the area, and he's just got to find it. So it becomes increasingly more difficult and more difficult and more difficult and more difficult. And we give them as much time as they want. But typically after 2 to 3, days of that, you turn them loose out there, and it is fucking game on. So I've done that with the last, 15-ish dogs I've raised over the last 10 years that are now still working. And it 100% translates to dogs that are willing, able, and understand how to hunt. And it's not, and I'm not like out there with a clicker doing anything. Like, I'm literally just like, if you want to eat, go find it, bro. And they usually figure it out pretty quickly. On the early phases, it's super easy. Like, we set the dogs up with wind. We give them litter mates to help at the same time, right? Because dogs learn through modeling. So we use at the very, very beginning, like they eat together, you know, then we narrow it down to 2 and then we narrow it down to a single, right? So they're out and, you know, usually they eat within 2 or 3 minutes. I mean, they find it pretty fucking fast. So obviously the hardest version of that is where there may be more than one feeding location, then split their meal up or split that portion of their meal up. And environmentally, it's, or I'm sorry, no, like in terms of weather conditions, it's probably not favorable. Like this, everything is downwind, so they can't wind it. They have to actually look for it. It's not visible from, like, you got to be on top of it to find it. They may have to go through something to get it. So there's any number of things we use to increase their hump. But the point is, they learn through self-discovery that if I continue to hunt by myself, I will eventually find what I'm looking for. And that alone, and I think a lot of times as trainers, we want to, and Eric, this dovetails exactly with what you were talking about, right? Like we want to induce some sort of change or behavior. And I think that's kind of individual to the person. Sometimes people feel like they want to have an effect on the outcome. On the other times, it's like, I've seen it as an ego thing. Like, I'm going to fucking make this dog do this. And life is so much easier when dogs just fucking do it. So this is completely independent of human interaction, right? Like the first one, we may kind of help a little bit to kind of set the stage for them. Like we'll make like a kind of like a little puppy track thing, which I'll talk about here in a second with the tracking phases. But it very much becomes an exercise where they learn how to hunt. I mean, that's effectively what it is. Like if you want something, you got to look for it, bro. So in that same respect, I have another area that we use for tracking, and all I do is a modified puppy box with hydration intensified. So if you're listening to this and you've gone through like Tom Rose, or if you understand, if you've read, I'll remember the name of the book here in a second, about how we create puppy boxes for young dogs at early on. And I have a little bit of different setup where we like have different grass heights. So it's really obvious because they have a visual and then they have like an olfactory portion of this as well. So they both visual and olfactory, like, oh, I can eat. All I have to do is find human odors, but it's taught in a separate context. That's not a hunting exercise. It's an imprint. I'm imprinting. That's effectively what we're doing. We're imprinting them on human odor. So even at an early age, and I'm talking 6 weeks old, these dogs are being exposed to hydration intensified tracking, hard surface, not necessarily hard surface, but they're being exposed to the same type of imprinting material and behavior that a lot of new modern canine trainers are using in the United States and Canada. And then to further that, the obedience is done from a very, very early age, obviously age appropriate, and it is like successive and builds upon itself with clickers. We use clickers and then we move on to just verbal marks. Because initially when they're fed, like when they're coming off of their mother and they're on goat milk, or even when they're on when the mother is going back in to feed them, we precede that with a clicker. Then the mom runs in and feeds. So the puppies wake up when they hear the clicker and they understand it's time to feed. So it's very, very fast. When I did this with the tequila litter, and I know some of these guys are listening to that are still running those dogs. I had those dudes call me back and I didn't do anything with them except what I'm talking about. And they called me and they're like, these are the easiest fucking dogs to train. Like they just know how to do it. I'm like, no, they don't know how to do it. They just know how to be trained. And which I personally feel like is the biggest stopgap between what we're doing in the United States and what's happening in Europe. Not necessarily like differing like philosophies or whatever, but just like how we do it is different. And it's how we do it in the United States. It's how they do it in wherever in Europe. And we do things differently here. And I think a lot of times those dogs are raised or presented with things that we don't necessarily do here. And I mentioned this in the last episode. If you talk to Bradshaw about that dog, I think his name's Ricardo, that he got that had I think he had a PH1 or PH2. He had one of the two, but converting that dog to do PSA work was one of the hardest things that Bradshaw said he's ever done. And some of that was the programs are so different and whatever else, but the analogy kind of still holds on this one. So what I'm seeking to do is, if you're in Kentucky, not that there's anything wrong with any other states, and you're like, I want a green dog or I want a green plus dog. What I would expect is if you've trained with other law enforcement guys in this country, whether it's, you know, Eric or Gooseby or, you know, any of these other guys, even Gary from Worthless Handler, or any of the other super talented like trainers, you know, Scott and Ronnie are over there. You know, we have a Jason and Aaron Ferguson and, you know, whoever, and we all kind of do very similar things, which are not very similar to what happens on the other side of the pond. But you would expect to be able to take one of these dogs that was raised in this manner and use what you've been taught, or what you've learned, and be able to take these dogs to finished completion. So, to finish patrol dog or finish single purpose dog or whatever it is. So when we start talking about biting, you know, and with those dogs starting the same thing, like they have individual little exercises that they're working on. So we start with puppy rag and then we move to sleeves. And we're doing a lot of the work, early on to prevent equipment fixation. So the dogs are encouraged to use very thin equipment early on. The dogs are exposed to a lot of things like tiny puppy bungees. They're exposed to super thin equipment. They're exposed to all these things.
Puppy bungee.
I've actually seen somebody use one, like, you know, like the ones that you just use in the back of your truck or whatever to like tie stuff down. Like this dude had one of those things that was like 40 feet long. And he was using like a tiny puppy bungee on him. I'm like, all right, whatever. So if anybody's ever raised a dog, you know, it's a very hands-on process. And we're not trying to create finished dogs. What I'm trying to do is weed out genetic and health issues and start them down the road of biting correctly, knowing how to hunt, and knowing how to be trained. And that alone. So even if you don't do, because we've had Dick Stahl on and we've had Steve White on, both are fantastically talented trainers, and 1000% I stole a ton of shit from them, unabashed. So we're like, how I track now is kind of a combination of what both those guys do. And even if you don't do it that way, like if you still do, and not there's anything wrong with this, if you still do like footstep tracking, the dogs will have already been imprinted on human odor early on. So theoretically it should like speed up that transition time. And, you know, not many of the dogs, like for instance, a lot of the dogs I've gotten that have a sport background, I'm not dogging sport, but you know, there tends to be a priority on a different set of skills there than there is in what we want. So while the same raw materials would be used for both programs, whether it be law enforcement or whether it be sport work, ours is obviously geared towards our end consumer here, which is police departments, and or military. So that in that vein, we won't do a ton of the like uber high-end control work that is required. Because if I was raising a puppy for like sport work, I would raise it completely differently than we're raising these dogs. I would place a very, very high priority on a lot of different things versus here. So you kind of talked about when these things happen. About every 4 to 5 weeks, we hit these 3 to 6-ish, depending on the time frame. Over about 14 months, we hit these performance targets. The dog should be able to perform this exercise or these things at this time based on the program. So we used a 49-day test to kind of filter them to single, dual, or search and rescue. And then from those, each one of those programs has their own thing. And as they work through those exercises, you'll see some of the dogs fall off, like they just won't hit those performance targets. And it's not to say that it's a bad dog. I might decide to push a dual into a single side, or I may decide to wash a dog completely from that type of work altogether if they don't hit those performance targets. And it's not to say that that dog can't perform that skill or that behavior or whatever. It just means that the amount of work to get that dog to that point is probably not best suited for our situation. I've sold multiple dogs at a discount as green plus that I've washed out of my programs, because the amount of work it would take me and my canine trainers dedicating, weeks of time to a single dog to make him successful. And I financially just can't do that. So, case in point, I sold a dog to a department in Alabama that I washed for dual purpose work, and his hunt was kind of weak too. And I told him that. And I think I only sold him for a couple $1,000, but a year later, right? Dog's now 3.5. A year after I sold him, he finally got to the point where he could work on, I think he ended up being a single purpose dog that tracks and was successful. And then again, now I've got this timeline problem where I can't afford to put 3 years into a dog that's going to take that long. So it's one of these like chicken or the egg arguments. And so if we end up washing those dogs because of performance targets, it just means that they're not suited for how we're going to sell them and train them once they get back to the United States. It doesn't mean that they're a bad dog. It's just, honestly, those dogs probably won't come over here. If they do, I'll probably end up donating them to like a veterans program that does, because the environmental stability, if they make it to that point in the program, their environmental stability is rock solid. Is rock solid. So if you remember, we had on God, I feel like an asshole. What was her name? We just had her on about the labs and it's Adams.
Yeah, let me look it up.
Fuck, Danique. We had Danique on, and she talked about how it's super important it is for selection on that too. So we'll bring those dogs in if they're here, they get here, we wash them, we'll just turn them into. Because the environmentals will be super solid. The other thing that I haven't talked about is the annoying habits that dogs pick up in Europe and in the United States. One is dog aggression. A lot of times I will tell you that from raising dogs and pointy ears anyway, German Shepherds, Malinois, and Dutchies, most of that like overt dog aggression is created. It's stems from bad interactions, and it stems from interactions. Like if you go back to like episode 3, I think we had Subtle on.
It's early. It's in less
but he
than
talked
10 episodes. Yeah.
he talked about how the mother of the puppies needs to be a social dog, because that's kind of how, from like first eyes open, like that's how they learn how to interact with human beings. And if you have a fucking female that's a bitch, wants to destroy you every time you come in there, they're going to act like that too, even if they're a fucking single purpose. So, from the onset, we want dogs that are not dog aggressive and we have some protocols in place to prevent dog aggression from happening. Because a lot of times it could be a singular learning event for dogs. And then chasing the fucking water hose. I have seen thousands of dollars of dental damage done to dogs because they just want to chase the fucking water hose. And I get it's a prey outlet and whatever else. But also it can cause pneumonia. It can cause all kinds of fucking problems, but we have ways to prevent that too. So, and then for those listening that do that laser stuff, that want to do lasers, if you have a dog that chases the fucking water hose, the laser will be a huge problem, massive problem. You won't be able to do it. Because the dog will just go outside of his fucking mind and he'll see that shit moving and he'll go from 0 to 11 right then. And you're not ever going to get him back. It never works. And it has to do with that self-discovery bullshit of chasing fucking water and fucking bullshit. Same thing with bowls. Dogs are not going to have access. They'll have access to bowls, but not like bowls that are going to move easily. So they're not going to fucking chase bowls around and be bowl crushers and cut their fucking face up. And you're not going to have to make concrete water bowls, all the dumb shit that everyone fucking hates that has nothing to do with finding bad guys or finding dope. It's living with the dog. Like, Can you live with him? Can you track past a pit bull in a backyard? Can you like wash his fucking kennel out without him going after the hose and breaking his fucking teeth off and having a $3,000 implant?
This episode is brought to you by DOGTRA, DOGTRA official, DOGTRA.com. You guys have heard us talk about it. We've been with DOGTRA for a long time. We love them. They're amazing people. We love their product. There's so many different things that they do. The 1900S, the hands-free. They got all kinds of things, poppers, droppers, all kinds of different things with their e-collar. But I have been a proponent of their YS600 bark collars for a long time. Everybody knows I talk about it. When I had the kennel open, I would come in and show videos of all the dogs being quiet. The YS600, they have the YS300 for smaller dogs. But here's the thing, guys. They just came out with a bark collar called the Smart Bark Collar. Dude, this thing is amazing. It attaches to an app on your phone. You can control everything out of it, see in real time what's working, what isn't working with the dog. But here's the kicker. it catches whining. That's the big deal with that smart bark collar. It catches the whining, because we all know your dogs learn to whine underneath the threshold of other bark collars, and it's super annoying. But with that smart bark collar, it catches the whining. And in the app, while it's working, you can just reach up and hit the vibrate button. There's a little button on your thing that'll vibrate that if that seems to work a little bit better for your dog. Or you can actually administer your own stim as a little bit extra if need be. You can set minimums, maximums, sensitivity levels to pick up that whining. Check out DOGTRA.com. They have a discount code WDR10, 10% off a single item over $200. But check out that smart bark collar, guys. It is amazing. We've been messing with it in my facility, and my employees absolutely love it. Check them out, dogtra.com.
So
The episode with Denique was 226 in November of last year.
yeah,
I thought that was not that long.
it felt like it's a lot sooner than that. It felt like it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, it was
But,
November
yeah.
7th last year. Yeah, because then 228 is Adam. So
Yeah. So
I have a
working on
question
book-
for you. That somebody
Sure.
asked me the other day, just a kind of a non sequitur here. Why do dogs jump when you toss a ball? Why do they jump when they could just sit there and wait for it to come down?
What do you mean?
Why do they jump to get the ball? Why don't they just sit there and wait for it to come down? This is not a joke or a riddle.
You know what I mean? Like when you're playing, like when you throw
Yeah.
a chuck it or
Like
something.
you're throwing a chuck it or whatever. Why do they jump when they can just now frisbee? I get it. It's not really coming down.
Right.
When
I
you
guess.
throw a ball. How come they can't learn just to wait on it? I said I don't know. Actually,
I would say that these dogs that we're talking about are not really known for their patience. It's the best way I can describe it, right? I mean, how often do we talk about drive capping? And like, how often do we talk about like satiation or whatever else? And like, the faster you get there, the faster. I think too, some of it can be like, if you do another raising thing here, if you do a shitload of field throws where dogs have to go hunt for it in grass, they can't fucking see it. They can see it when it's in the air. So, I mean, and I'm not mad at it, because I mean, like hand-eye coordination for us is super important, and hand-mouth or eye-mouth coordination for dogs is super important as well. So, I mean, that's definitely a thing. Like, you know, if you've ever tried to teach a dog how to catch like stuff you throw at them, like you've seen that those reels on Instagram with that, or what is he? He's like a golden retriever where they throw like hot dogs at him and stuff and just smashes him in the face.
Yeah.
And because he can't catch, I'm like, no one taught that dog how to catch stuff with his mouth. So,
So let me.
I would just assume it's just because of like not knowing it. I don't have to look for it. I don't have to look for it. It's right there.
Yeah. That's probably pretty good. If I jump, I can get it faster. Maybe that's it. I really didn't know. I didn't have an answer. I'm not that sciencey. So that this episode isn't 3 hours long, because there's so much going on in raising puppies. Let's jump to the bite work stuff. When do you start putting things in their mouth in that kind of context?
So I start that early on, like, I don't know, 3 weeks old, like super early. And that's just chasing like whatever that is, like whether it's a rag or bottles or, you know, stuff, and allowing them.
Flirt pole guy?
It depends on the dog. You know, some of these dogs don't necessarily need that. If you move too fast, they're going to chase it and bite it. I will do like semi-structured stuff where, because I'm always promoting correct biting behavior, you know, all the way to the back of the mouth, not pulling, all that shit. So when we do those structured things, I'll do that with a flirt pole. And the one thing that I will talk about with a flirt pole is I think people stick to the side to side thing much too long. I see experienced dog, I say experienced, but you know, 18, 19-month-old dogs on back ties, and dudes are still moving side to side and, you know, doing who says that? I don't remember. Somebody calls it an engineered miss, basically, where, you know, you know where the limit of your line is and you're just making the dog miss, and, you know, we want them to bark. And every time I watch somebody do it, I kind of think to myself, I'm like, why the fuck are you doing that? Like, what is the training outcome? What is the training value of this? Like, we understand the dog has drive. It's clear that he understands and recognizes contextually what you're asking him to do. So we're done working on that. So at about 6-ish weeks old, they're no longer doing that shit. If we're on back ties, they're doing drop backs. I think Rigney said it it's got to be Rigney. It sounds like something you would say, but there's no such thing as a suicide bunny.
Yeah, that's him. Yeah.
Okay. So, and he's 100% correct. So the dogs the rag is not put into their mouth. They got to come get it. And they chase it, right? So it may start side to side, but then I just call them dropbacks. And the dogs are then made to chase and grab.
Meaning you're dropping back.
Yeah. So then if you're watching, on TV, or on YouTube or whatever, we move back and then the dog chases and makes contact.
Got it.
And rather than, swing it into their mouth. And then from there, we can promote good gripping and everything else. The other thing that I will do early on, 12 weeks old-ish, is get them used to seeing like what a building search looks like, what a car extraction looks like. And they'll chase a little puppy thing like into a car, jump into the car, jump onto the car, not like awfully nothing weird, but all controlled, just more than anything else so they can see they're being presented with something that they would see as an adult, but obviously it's scaled down to puppy stuff. And they'll see that successive iterations of that as they move up in equipment and as they move up in targeting. Here's another thing that somebody asked me the other day about raising. They're like, oh, do you prefer like a target to teach first? If I'm raising a dog, I teach legs first, all legs. And then we teach upper body last. They'll always bite arms no matter what, but I always teach legs first if I have an opportunity to. It just makes it so much cleaner, and it makes it, I find that the dogs transfer less. I find that the targeting is much more, or the biting behavior is much more stable once they're on a leg. For me personally, on a shin, it's a lot easier to mark, for young dogs anyway. I can overtly mark those behaviors much easier, just personally for me. Maybe it's because I like doing it. I don't know. Leg bites suck, but teaching it for me. And then there's obviously, if you remember, we had Jason Davis on like fucking 6 years ago or something, which if you're listening and you want to learn how to teach dogs to bite legs, probably one of the best guys in the country, if you're an American, without a doubt.
So Jason is going to teach at Hold the Line this next year. And the class is the fundamentals of teaching leg bites for police dogs. Because a lot of guys.
There you go. Perfect. Well, he's one of the best guys in the country at teaching legs bites. So, and the way that he teaches it too, because he's been to Tulsa and taught at one of my decoy camps and taught how to teach leg bites. And I mean, I picked up a ton of shit from him that I kind of like ancillarily knew, but I like listening to him, I understood like why we were doing it. But I'll teach legs first and then I'll teach upper body after. But all of that stuff is done through successive approximation. Like as the dog gets older, we move up in equipment. And then once we get to, and I'll say this, when I raise them, I have multiple dogs that are working now. In fact, one of them bit somebody yesterday that he's 9 now, but that dog has never seen a hard sleeve in his life. Ever. He's never seen a Schutzen sleeve or whatever you want to call it, a wedge sleeve or whatever.
Sleeve or whatever.
He's never seen that. He's never seen it. And he didn't need it. I use those for green dogs that's all they have experience on, and then I'll use those to bleed them off onto other equipment. If I have a dog that has a weak grip, I'll use a barrel sleeve that's super hard. If I have a dog that doesn't have a full bite, I'll use a wedge to help or I'll use a Schutzen sleeve to kind of help bridge that gap. Yeah. So it's much easier. It's much more precise, I guess is the easiest way to say it, to market. And then individually the dogs, we may end up having to work through problems. We may have a dog that has a very full bite and that doesn't pull, but he doesn't bite very hard relative to his peers. And that's when we start using other equipment that's like the thing that Mike and, Mike Jones and Matt Wilson made from Red Ray on the GTFO thing, the wedge with the leather on it. It's a great tool, fantastic, because they have to bite that motherfucker really hard to stay on.
I just got
doesn't take. Yeah, those are money. So and if you're listening, you can buy one from Ray Allen. They sponsor the show. I have a couple, and they're fantastic. So, and then I may have some dogs that bite like fucking alligators, but they're a little kind of chewy. So each dog kind of has its own thing that we may have to kind of work through. And I have separate things set up for that for the trainers in Europe that are for our guys in Europe that I want them to do. the other portion of it too is it's been, Eric Good and Justin Rigney will be the first guys to tell you that they did not invent the barking fence thingy. It's been going on forever. Justin's caught a bunch of heat because he's like, people are like, oh, he acts like he invented it. I'm like, he never said that. I've talked to him about it. No, and like I've talked to Eric about it, and Eric's like, I didn't fucking invent that. Somebody showed it to me. I'm like, I know, because somebody showed it to me too. We will start that. I will start that with puppies at a fairly young age to kind of knowing that a lot of Americans are using it and a lot of Canadians, like, which if you're going to use it, fine, fuck it, we'll do it. So we'll start that early on, age appropriate, right? So that the dogs understand. So that when, like, for instance, if you buy a 14-month-old greenish dog, like, you should be able to take that dude straight up, hook him up on a harness, put him on a solid back tie or a bungee, whatever. But they've been exposed to all these things. We're also going to expose the puppies to e-collars early on with negative reinforcement, not with corrections, but we'll use negative reinforcement with some of the e-collars. So we'll do tone and vibration avoidance, a la Eric.
Thank you.
And but the dogs will all have like recall. Teach them to play corner pong early on, and that's how we teach the either tone or vibration recalls early on. So when the dogs come in from Europe, it's a year old, he's already had an e-collar on, and he may not have even been a correction, but he's had some stem, but they understand really, really quickly how this works. So if you're in a course and this is the thing, like I had a conversation with somebody the other day, they're like, I'm going through school, I'm in a 6-week school, I'm in week 5, and I'm still wrestling with the fucking toy, and my trainer won't let me use food for obedience. And I'm like, that's fucking stupid, right? So what I'm trying to do is give the dog as much foundation and multiple ways of working and interacting with a human that wherever they end up going, that they should be able to finish a school no problem, and try and take out some of the guesswork for a lot of because you and I talk about this. We've had multiple guests on. Alicia and I were talking about this the other day. That we've been doing the show 8 years now. We've had so many people on to talk about like the difference between a trainer and a handler. And a lot of times you have experienced handlers that have handled 2-3 dogs running a training school for brand new handlers, and they've trained a handful of dogs in their career versus guys like you and I. We did 115 dogs last year.
Nice.
So, I did a handler school for every single one of those dogs. So I'm
pretty well versed.
Yeah. And so, I don't see the same problems over and over again. Sometimes I only see it like once every 5 years, like a certain problem, but at least I've seen it. And what I'm trying to prevent is getting dogs in that have these fucking weird quirks, and then the dogs end up being euthanized, or the dogs end up being washed or returned, or they get subpar training and handling because of whatever the fuck they're going on. They're trying to fix a stupid problem that has zero to do with the working capacity of the animal, instead of, your fucking job, like finding dope and biting shitheads. So, and doing it safely and professionally. And that's really where this started from. So
I think one of the most important takeaways from this part of the episode is, if you're so in this country, when a guy in police canine gets a puppy to raise up and do it, that's only because the department let it happen because they didn't spend any money. That's the only reason police departments in the U.S. let handlers raise puppies and use them, is because they don't spend any money on it. They ain't our dog yet. It ain't our dog. We're not spending any money on it. It's the only reason. But if you're going to raise puppies for this type of stuff, you have to be ready and willing to shift gears and realize that the puppy might not be cut out for the police work, because then you end up, because this is my dog, I've had this dog forever, then you're trying to force that that square peg into the round hole, and you end up with a dog that's not great. We got lucky at my department because we had Jethro. Jethro was Ryan's pet, and he as he got older, when the time came, we're like, well, Ryan's like, I don't mind using him if he's got what it takes, and he had what it takes. It just, we got lucky there.
And that's not common.
No, it isn't. And he came from a good working line breeder that we knew very well. Good genetics, good foundation. Ryan really didn't he brought him to work with him sometimes. He didn't really do a ton of foundational work with him, but he just, once we started messing with the bite work stuff, we're like, oh, this is a big headed.
Somebody that's been with us since the beginning is Arnaud at ALM, based out in Vegas. Arnaud makes fantastic bite suits. I've been a senior level PSA decoy for a long time. All of my trial suits are ALMs. I love them. I've sent my one jacket back multiple times to have new sleeves put on it because it fits so well. Arnaud works with you through the process, helps you get a design set up. In fact, when I went out to see him in Vegas, he had my original design still in my original pattern still in the workshop there, and he was able to make me another jacket just out of the one that I have that's like 10 years old. He made me another one. Super high quality materials, super high quality stitching. Great service after the fact if you have to have repair work done. Hit him up, ALM Canine Equipment. That's the letter K number 9.com. ALM Canine Equipment. Use this discount code WD Radio for 10% off. Another person that has been with us since the beginning is the person that wrote the music for the intro and the outro on this. His name's Brother Dege. He's no longer with us. He's a super talented musician, and I actually met him at a live show here in Tulsa. Super nice guy. He was super supportive of what we do here and what police dogs do in general. And he was gracious enough to allow us to use the music for that. Yeah. Wherever you're at, you can look at him on iTunes and on Spotify. Just Brother Dege, spelled Dege, and it's brotherdege.net.
This brings up an interesting point. There was a post that I was watching the other day of a vendor that I can't fucking stand in Europe. I'm not going to mention his name, but I think he's a fucking snake oil salesman, and I think he's a piece of shit, honestly. But he was demonstrating the pipe exercise, right? And one of our former guests just flat out asked, he's like, hey, and in public, he's like, hey, why are you doing this? And what he was asking is, what are you demonstrating here?
Yeah.
And this fucking shyster was like, well, that's what CBP requires. And, when you had Oscar Trevino on, who, if you talk about Border Patrol Canine, he's the guy. So, and when you talk to those Border Patrol guys about the pipe test, like everyone knows kind of the nexus of why that thing started. And all this dude was asking, and this is a recent episode that we had him on, was like, why are you doing it? And the only answer is, well, that's what CBP requires, is chasing the pipe, willingness to hold the pipe. And, he's like, I understand that, but why? Like, what are you demonstrating? And this guy was just an indignant cocksucker, and he was just like, oh, it's because, it's good genetics. You're like, okay, holding a fucking copper pipe is good genetics. And, we've had multiple people on to talk about that exercise and how it started. And I've talked to the guys that, whatever. But
I've put out dozens and dozens and dozens of great police dogs. I've never done the copper pipe. I don't give a fuck about the copper pipe. I don't care. It's not a test I'll ever do. It's stupid.
Yeah, I'm not going to prep them for that either.
Yeah, it's not useful.
Now, I do know handlers like our troopers in the state will reward their dogs with PVC pipes, which is cool.
Pipe, yeah,
because they're more willing to spit those out, and which is also part of the whole reason that we use it for selection. But it's a lot easier to convince them to spit that out than it is to spit out a fucking Kong. But
back to what I was talking about real quick on the puppy thing. I have a great example for you. So when I had that puppy, or excuse me, that dog that the guy sold me that was pregnant at the lab, where Jesse Joe came from, I sold 3 of those puppies to a lady in Indiana at a place called the Indiana Canine Learning Center.
And this, you saying that
place is amazing, like unbelievable that what this lady had going on up there. And her whole thing was raising dogs for all kinds of different service stuff, seeing eye dogs, diabetic alert dogs, seizure dogs, just, emotional support dogs. And then she got into other things. So one of the puppies that she bought from me, was this giant puppy, like twice the size of the next biggest puppy. He was a huge load, and he loved people so much, and he would just lay at their feet and just lay there forever. And she's like, this dude is going to be at the hospital, the children's hospital, therapy dog for sure. He's the biggest lover, and he just chills, and anybody can touch him and pet him. Fast forward, I don't hear from her, and it's like 6 months later, 8 months later, I'm like, so, hey, how's whatever his name is, the big dog? She goes, that dude turned into a gangster detection dog and is now like a working at a fire department as like a arson detection dog or something like that, you know, accelerant type dog. And she said, that's the thing. You got to be willing to shift gears. And if you're the police guy at home and you're trying to raise your next dog, listen, you have to be honest with yourself. And listen, you might get that dog a job. If you want him to have a job, it might be a search and rescue. Maybe he's great at tracking or trailing, or, you know, and he can really do that stuff really well, but he's not going to be the dual purpose dog if you need that type of thing. Don't be afraid to find that dog a job, man. But we get emotionally attached, you know, to the dogs. And if the department paid for the puppy, you definitely have to be honest with that. It's not your dog. Always remember, it is not your dog. So,
Yeah.
So anyways, I think we're probably going to do some more of these here and there, you know, these little training things. If anybody wants to,
one of the other things we're going to do is we're going to record on screen share, you and I doing our presentations for the stuff that we do at conferences and seminars, and we're going to put it on YouTube behind our subscription thing, and probably move everything from Patreon over to that. But because this program that we use to record this allows us to do that now, so you and I just have to find the time to sit down and really do our 2-hour spiel in each one of our conferences or like our PowerPoint things that we do. So, and on top of that, I'm going to do a deal. I go over to Bulgaria, I think in November. But we'll do a deal like the puppy exercises that I've been talking about. We're going to film all that stuff, and all that stuff will be available. And I'll kind of follow up with what I'm talking about here with a whole video thing. Nesbeth just did one, or is doing one right now with a dog he has named. What's that dog's name? It starts with a P. Not Penelope. Polly. Starts with it's a Polly. It's a little female. I think it's a female Malinois. Well, Nesbeth will see this and be like, "Oh, her name's this." I think it's Polly, if I remember correctly. But he's doing it's a fantastic like foray into like, and a lot of what he's saying is like I'm echoing here. There's a little bit of differences, but I mean, he's raised a shit ton of those too. But we'll be doing a very similar thing. So the other thing that I think I mentioned, that every single one of those dogs will be like buying a Porsche, in a sense that you'll have medical from the time the dog is born. Like from the time the dog is born, you will have all kinds of shit on this dog. It'll be on a cloud-based system that, like if you're looking for dogs, you're like, hey, you send an email to us and say, hey, I'm looking for a dog. What do you have? And I'll send you a link with a password protected thing. And you can just look at, because we have capacity for 100. And by 2027, I want to be doing between 200 and 300 a year. So at any, whatever time that is, you'll have access to the dogs that are in Europe or the dogs that are already in the United States. And there'll be videos and there'll be pictures and all their x-rays and health shit. All that stuff is already in their individual little files. And the testing will be standardized. So like you'll see the same dogs go through the same shit over and over and over again.
So we white out on the passport.
No, yeah. No, or signed by Dr. Bendover. No, we're not doing that either. So yeah. From the onset, all that shit will be done. So that's one thing I think I talked about it last time. I didn't talk about it this time, but it's one of the other reasons that we fail dogs a lot is medical. We didn't even touch on that, but I'm seeking to make that number fucking 0. So
cool.
Yeah.
So workingdogradio.com. If you get on there, you can see all our merch and everything we have on there, and you can get on there and build what you want. You can put our logo on a cup, or some of our sayings like "Make America Bite Again." You could put that on a shirt, cup, leggings, whatever it is.
Alicia has some of those leggings. Yeah.
Yeah. If you look me up on Amazon, Eric Stanbro, you'll see my books on there. My book is my PowerPoint turned into a book. So it's $15 on there. If you can't get to one of my seminars, if you're good, dude. So there's a couple guys that I was just recently talking to them. So it's so cool. I never got to see them. They went and got my book and read it. And they just did a 3-day e-collar course for their local handlers off of what my book is, and said they had great success. I talked to them yesterday, I think, and had a couple little questions, but we were pretty close. They were pretty close, like probably 95% of what I was talking about and teaching. They taught it in the class and had wonderful success. So that was cool, man. A lot of guys can't learn that way, so that was pretty neat to hear. Where are you at?
Ted_Summers on Instagram. And then, working_dog_radio on Instagram for the podcast. HRD Police K9, letter K number 9, for seminars and stuff for that. And then Oil Capital Canine Fund.org, letter K number 9 in that one. And then OC Canine Fund on Instagram for the 501. We have a
I didn't know you had an Instagram for that.
Yep, OC Canine Fund. And it's a project that has taken off. We've already donated 10 heat alarms, I think, or 8. Or we have funding. We have funding for 10 and have funded 8, I think. So you can go there, and it's only for Oklahoma teams. So if you're listening to this near Oklahoma, shoot me an email at just Ted at Torchlight K9, letter K number 9.
I'm this 69th follower. Giggle.
Nice. I saw a map about that the other day. It was like, that was the number one joked about number in like most countries, except Italy was like, the number 104 is funny, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
So anyway,
probably has to do with food. Hey, real quick before we go. So I'm in my dining room. I can see the lake from my kitchen window.
Yep.
While we were about 45 minutes ago, I just happened to look out and saw one of the best jet ski crashes that I've seen. Somebody I can't see who it is or anything. You see a human being on this jet ski going full speed, and they hit a surf boat wake, and they must have turned them sideways. The jet ski barrel rolled in midair, like two full rolls, and the dude went at least 15 feet, starfished out, flying through the air. So you're talking something about puppies, and I'm watching. I'm like, well, I don't see this person. Like, have they come back up? I hope. And then I see him swimming further away, probably to get sunglasses or something that flew off. They swam way away, and then I see him swim back, get on it, and take off. But that was a pretty cool little thing that I saw. It was brutal. I loved it. So
excellent.
all right, man. We'll talk to you guys later.
All right. We'll see you.
See you.